All right, how's it going, guys? How's it going? So, you come to this channel if you want to see the best breakdown of fighting games from a technical level. The topics that other bigger channels don't talk about or will glaze over or don't understand because they don't play fighting games at a high level. So you come to this channel to get that insight and break down what's going on and what makes it tick. So this game's gonna be no different. This is gonna be from another negative angle. I can make 10 videos on the positives of Mortal Kombat 1 because there's many positives, especially when it comes to the presentation and the visuals. One of the best fighting games I've ever seen from a visual standpoint. I think, especially in terms of a Western fighting game, this is the best looking fighting game I've ever seen, for sure. But we're gonna be negative on this video. So all of your more popular but inferior fighting game channels will tell you that MK1 is dead, that NRS stopped supporting it. And the reasonings they'll say is the content, the cameo system, they'll talk about a lack of support, they'll talk about the netcode, they'll talk about anything outside of the actual gameplay. And if they do, they'll tell you about the cameo system, but they won't tell you, okay, why do people not like the cameo system? How is this different from any other tag fighting game? Beyond the obvious of MK players aren't used to a tag fighter system. Beyond that, how is it a drawback? So this brief video is going to tell you why mechanically did MK1 fail. What in terms of the technical gameplay made the game fail and made it to where the game isn't an enjoyable experience. So MK1 is a hybrid of the worst elements of Tekken, Marvel vs. Capcom, and Street Fighter 6. Let me explain. So first off, let's begin with why this game isn't fun on a competitive level. Let's talk about the damage. So the potency of hit confirms from virtually any attack can lead into 40% plus combos. Now, most people have 1,000 units of health, as you can see. And if you choose certain assists, then it'll reduce that. Like I have Movado, so you see 950 over my bar when it comes to Noob Saibot, the character I play. You can easily do 40% damage in this game off a single combo. Let's just do a simple, because remember, cameos are integrated into this game to where you must have a cameo fighter and you must be synergetic with it. It's not simply a single player fighter with tags. The tag system is integrated in the game. So this is a simple non-optimum combo using one bar. Let's see how much this gets you. That got him 44% of his damage, nearly 50% of his damage on a non-optimum combo using a single bar. Non-optimal. So do you see what I mean? Now we're going to get into the defensive options later, but you often have a full assist and at least 1 meter of special throughout a game. The replenish rate on that is super fast. And let's say I do even more complicated stuff. Let's say I go like this. Now you can see the damage is already rising, right, to 470. So you can already see that the better my setup or the more I know my character, then I can start to even approach 50% of your life on one combo. So before we get to defensive options, we're gonna talk about grabs. So if you see my last video on 2SKO, you'll know that the original purpose from how I see it when it comes to grabs, it's a defensive mechanic. It's to ward off over aggressive offense, right? If somebody has you to the wall and they're constantly destroying you, right? Like let's say I do something like this. Then I can continue it, right? So you can imagine. So you can imagine you can keep attacking, especially in this game, obviously, which has an offense way more potent than a Street Fighter 2, than a Third Strike, than a Guilty Gear Accent Core, than the game to where you have the 0-frame proximity grabs, which again, it's best used as a defensive mechanic to ward off what you just saw me do with Noob Saibot. But in this game, grabs aren't a defensive mechanic. Instead, they completely destroy defensive integrity in the game. So they're an offensive mechanic. And it's actually the most broken offensive mechanic in the whole game is grabs. So quite the opposite. So anytime someone grabs in this game, you're flown to Las Vegas and you're put in a 50-50 casino mode. If this was Tekken, if I were to grab and you see my left punch come out, you know it's a 1-3 break, which means you can break a 1 and vice versa, 2-4, it'd be 2. But in this game, it's like one character in Tekken, which is King, which he has a command throw to where you cannot tell which break it is. So in this game, there's a forward and a back break. I can do a forward throw, right? And I can do back throw, right? But here, it's a true 50-50 to where it's the same animation for forward grab and a back grab, which means you can't tell which grab they're doing, which means, it's, like I said, it's a true 50-50 as a casino. That is universally disliked in fighting games, especially when it comes to competitive play. People don't like a guessing game. That's antithetical to you being rewarded for your skill, right? So again, the one exception in Tekken is the universal standard in this game, which means you cannot tell which throw they're doing. So I understand this has been a thing since MKX. From going back and playing MKX and MK11, this is a normal thing in Mortal Kombat, at least in modern Mortal Kombats. But the problem with this same throw mechanic being in MK1 is the game is essentially a Tekken game and a Marvel vs. Capcom game in one, like I said earlier. So you notice in those games like MK1, there's so much offensive potential with assist that it's naturally harder to defend. So throws are made easier in a Marvel vs. Capcom game to break with just a single break. So in the game with so much going on like this game, as you've seen from the combos I've done, and can you imagine me doing this, me doing this, me doing this, right? And being able to combo from this, right? Or me doing the EX version, and you've already seen me combo with this, right? So you can imagine, it's just, this is the equivalent of the same offensive chaos of a Marvel vs. Capcom game. And again, in those games, you're able to break throws easily because it's insane to have throws such a complex guessing game when there's already so much going on the offense. So those games are naturally more balanced than this game. So having a powerful throw mechanic may have worked in MKX, where the combos aren't nearly as, no, because MKX has a lot of combos, right? At the very least, the baseline gameplay isn't as crazy as MK1 because MK1 has assist to where I can attack you from anywhere, you know? So there's more hitboxes going on in this game than MKX, I assume. So it probably worked more for older Mortal Kombats, but not in this game where way more is happening and it's easier to breach an opponent's defense, right? So creating a guessing scenario with something as pivotal as grabs is laughably bad design. Instead of throws naturally being a defensive mechanic in traditional fighting games, it only benefits the offensive player. Because if I have you right here and I'm attacking you and you already have to deal with overheads, you have to deal with lows. And if you guess wrong, I can get you for nearly 50% of your life. Because guess what? If you guess wrong on an overhead, here, that's a combo, right? If you guess wrong on overhead, that's a combo, right? I can combo you any way I want, you know? Right? And if you guess wrong on the low, then that's a combo, right? You see what I mean? So every single move has deadly consequences. So there's no reason for a grab when these are already deadly. There's no reason for a grab to be a 50-50 guessing game. And to add fuel to the fire, do you think it just ends there? It doesn't. You know what I mean? You can also combo from grabs, right? So I can do this, and then that happens, and then I can combo him, right? Did you see that? So if the grab is successful, and I see that, then I can send out an assist, and then get a combo, right? If you think that wasn't enough, then certain characters can naturally combo from grabs, right? So if I do this, this is a normal, and if I press LB here, then I can slam him down. And if I do Embrace Chaos, then I can get a full combo from a grab. You see what I'm saying? Is this not the strongest grab mechanic that any fighting game has ever seen? Am I lying from that? Or is that true? You decide, let me know in the comments. And just to hammer home the fact that this is not a defensive mechanic, this is an offensive mechanic. And so remember, for ethical fighting games, especially older ones, that grabs are often 0 frames. And why are they 0 frames? If something is that quick, then it makes sense from a design perspective that you want to use that to interrupt someone. But here, look at the speed of grabs. Grabs are 10 frames slow. You see on the bottom left, the startup? So grabs are nearly the same speed as a quick jab, right? Because my quickest jab for Noob Sidebot is 7 frames, but a normal quick jab would be like 9 frames, right? This will be 11. So it was right around a quick poke in terms of a grab, right? So again, it's an attacking mechanism. It sounds weird to think about, but really study fighting games, you'll know what I'm talking about. And so my next point is the fact that a lot of defensive options is non-intuitive and is bipolar. So obviously I said it's the 50-50 casino, but there is a way to beat grabs, and that's to duck, right? And this is not only grabs, but command grabs. Now, here's how unintuitive this is. You're able to duck, but you can't block while ducking, right? So if I'm blocking while ducking, then I'm gonna get grabbed, you know? But again, you can duck, but you can't duck while blocking, you know? Also, if you duck while blocking, you can't parry a grab. So if I duck and I happen to block, I'm unable to parry a grab. It's already hard enough to guess which one to grab. But if you're doing an attack while you grab, then it counts as a counter hit and you're unable to break a grab. You see throw counter to the right? You see that? But what's the problem with ducking? You can say, okay, but you can duck though. What's the problem with this? It's that it's super non-intuitive and it's risky. First off, it doesn't even make sense, to be honest with you. Why would I want to stop blocking to counter a grab? Like, why is that the option and not pressing? It would make more sense if I could press a certain button while blocking, like LT or something, in order to make a grab whiff. But the fact that I have to stop blocking, you know what that means. In a game that's the equivalent of a Marvel versus game, stop blocking means you're gonna die, right? Because if this person is doing this, right? And then he whips my grab. So the fact that I don't have to grab, right? So essentially you're not blocking while I'm at range 0. So if I know you're looking to avoid a grab because you don't want to deal with a casino, then I can just do a mid. Then a mid is death, you know? So in no realm in this particular game would you want to be not blocking while I'm close to you. You know what I mean? That's crazy. That's insane. But the fact that that's a defensive option and the only one in order to guarantee that you can avoid grabs means that the mechanics of this game is the chaos realm. It's literally Havoc's chaos realm. That's the mechanics of this game, especially the defensive mechanics. If you don't know that this second kicks overhead, then I'm going to kick your ass. Anytime I'm doing a string and you're blocking normally, I can just go high overhead and then begin a combo. Because this game lives and breathes on hit confirms, right? You don't know that this is overhead. And that's all from not knowing that that's an overhead, not knowing that this is an overhead, which means that this game is no different than the bloat of Tekken. And to be fair, Tekken has more strings, but it's not even an argument that it's more fatal to not know the strings if you face against an MK player. Not knowing this is way more deadly than anything of not knowing in Tekken. You have to lab every character in this game, you know, to know the strings. And especially when it comes to high level play, you need to know that stuff like that's neutral on block. So when you actually get into this game, it comes down to knowing the frames of strings exactly like Tekken, you know? And again, the defensive mechanics of this game does you no favors. So going back to the grabs example, you're not gonna really know who has a command grab from a string. So a lot of this game, like Tekken, there's lab checks. So let's say I'm attacking with Peacemaker and I do a string like this. Just normally blocking, you're gonna get hit by that every time, right? So there's true block strings into command grabs. And so let's say I do his full screen grab, right? So the thing about this is that you think, okay, that's a command grab too, but it's not, right? I can duck it, but that's because it's high, right? So if you see here, that's a high attack, so I can block it. But you see what I mean? Like, it's so arbitrary. Like, why isn't that a command grab? All right. And now I do Sonya's assist, which I forget which one it is. That one right there, right? Matter of fact, let's do it how people would normally do it. And let's do it off from a string, right? So let's say I do that. So that's a full combo, right? So let's say, okay, now that's a low. So let me do that. Now that is an overhead grab. So it looks like a command grab, but in this case, you can't duck under it like a grab or command grab because it's an overhead. So you can only counter this by blocking straight. So it's an overhead command grab, right? It's not a grab, it's not a command grab, it's not a regular attack. And that's on top of me having to know his strings and where to guard, right? Because if I don't guard, then that's a combo. This is what I mean. It's very arbitrary and it's very lab checky. And the same is true for projectiles too. Whether it's this to where it will impact if you are guarding while crouching. Only if you crouch while not guarding, it won't impact, right? So if I go to here, I do this, then if I'm blocked here, it's a high, right? If I duck and don't block, then they'll whiff. But if I'm blocking, then they'll do that. And you see alone the consequence for not guarding correctly, right? If I deal with it on a grab, then it's 50-50, right? If I deal with this and block, then at any moment he can fully combo me. So this is what you have to deal with. The consequence for not being a perfect defensive player in a game that has erroneous defensive options. So because of that, you kind of need to be quicker than a normal versus game. But the fact that you move here like it's Street Fighter 6 and it's just very sluggish, this means that there's no neutral, so you're going to be relying on assist to cover ground, or you're going to be relying on your character's techniques, you know, to do something like that, you know. So you're totally reliant on your character's special moves and your assist special moves, and not on your gameplay. So the last point is there's too many exceptions and interruptions in the gameplay. The offensive potency is stymied entirely by interruptions. So wake up armored special attacks, armored fatal attacks, armored assist moves, and most often the combo breaker mechanic. Guess and take whatever he mixes me with, or I can do an armored wake up move, right? Like that. Or you can do the more common thing, which is the combo breaker right there. And that takes up all 3 bars of your special meter, but it gets you off you. And so that combo breaker is the lifeblood of retaining your sanity when getting pressured and comboed. It just creates a chaotic system of rug pulls and an overemphasis on constantly needing to meter match. Things that take away from the core gameplay. So this makes the game feel like you're combating the mechanics and systems rather than the player. And add to that the fact that the tax system is so pivotal and integral to the success of your play means that the whole experience feels way too contrived and systematic in a bad way. But those are the gameplay reasons why MK1 did not land like it should have. Despite the high budget, despite the presentation, despite the variance and uniqueness of the characters, because there's a lot of good to this game when it comes to interesting versions of characters like Noob Saibot, right? The soundtrack is probably one of the best among the modern Mortal Kombats, easily better than the last 2 games. So subscribe if you haven't already, because you're going to get more insight like this that others won't talk about, right? Also, I do have channel membership, so check that out too. It's in the description. And if you haven't seen it already, then go ahead and check out my DNF Duel review video, and that will be linked in the description. So check it out, and I'll see you later.